So greetings from VZ Maine. I hope everybody's doing well. The end of the semester is so close. We're inching towards the finish line. And again, I just want to thank you for your diligence and for really doing a nice job keeping up with the work. In 16 or 15 weeks, we have a lot to cover, so it means a lot to me to see folks putting in the full effort and really trying to maximize what they get out of the class. As you've probably experienced with most of your classes, and this is particularly true of a writing class where really the only way to get better is to practice, to get feedback, and then to implement that feedback. You're really going to get out of the course what you put into it, and so it means a lot to me when people devote a lot of energy and time to the class. So that being said, let's talk a little bit about where we've been recently and where we're going to head, and some of the challenges that's going to pose for us and some of the things that we're going to have to sort of conquer. So just a little bit of housekeeping. My plan, as it stands right now, is to try my very best to return everything that I have from you by Friday. I want to completely clear out my grading queue, and in so doing, I want to post your most up-to-date grade, okay? And so I will make sure that that is prominently listed for you and that you'll be able to see a percentage, and you'll have a really good sense of where you're at heading into the final assignment. And that will give you the opportunity, if you so choose, to revise any work that you're not satisfied with. So if you have assignments on which you received grades that don't jive with you, then that's fine. We can talk about ways to improve your grade. Ultimately, down the stretch here, I'd like you to be in the driver's seat of what you receive for a grade in this class. And the best way to do that is to give you an opportunity to revise and rework any assignments that need that final sort of love and care. So that's how we're going to operate. So hopefully by Friday, I'm going to do my best, as you can probably appreciate and understand. This time in the semester in particular, I'm just wading through grades slowly and methodically and trying my best to maintain quality in my feedback, but also do it as expediently as possible. So thank you for your patience on that, and Friday you should receive a care package from me with a load of feedback and grades. So that being said, we are just finishing up the safety fact sheet assignment. And again, the spirit of that assignment was really just to give you the opportunity to practice researching, to give you the opportunity to go out and find information, to repackage that information, to translate that information, to repurpose that information, and to put it in front of an audience of your coworkers. And so what that requires you to do is to think carefully about their needs, their expectations in their day-to-day life, and to find a way to make the material that you're finding intersect with the work that they do so that you can have a fighter's chance of preventing or at least stymieing some of the health and safety related issues that we know are common to our various fields. So that's really what we were up against. It's a relatively small assignment in the context of the class, but it forces us to think about a number of really important things as writers, as I've talked about in my last 2 mini lectures. It really forces us to think about how we're going to use the space of the page, how we're going to repurpose language, how we're going to present information in a logical, useful way. And really one of the most important takeaways of that assignment is the editorial control you have as a writer. You can really make the decision as to what is in and what is out, what is pertinent, what is not, what is essential, what is not. And again, I can't stress enough, as writers, that's often one of the most important decisions we can make. Oftentimes our audience tends to tune out when we include extraneous or superfluous information that doesn't matter, that doesn't help them solve an immediate problem, that goes above and beyond the purpose of the document. So that's really what we were hitting at with that, and I'm anxious to take a look at what you've done with those and to give you some feedback and give you a provisional grade on those so that if you're satisfied you can move on, and if you'd like to make any final revisions you certainly can do that. So what that means is we're heading into the final assignment of the semester, which is a recommendation report. And so this is going to be a formal written report where you investigate a situation, a problem-solving situation, where somebody has asked you to go out, conduct some research, and make some recommendations, and then help make a final decision. And you'll see the various scenarios as they're posted on the assignment sheet. And so I've tried to be as inclusive as possible. Of course, teaching at a community college, it's very hard to do so. We have a range of interests and a range of majors, and so it becomes virtually impossible for me to incorporate all of the various trades and things like that. So I want to leave open to you the option of creating your own scenario where if you want to write about something more related to your own career or even a hobby, that's fine. All I ask is that you imagine an audience that is less than expert in the area about which you'll be writing. And so, and that's really important, because if you look at the various scenarios, one of the key outcomes of this particular assignment is something that we've been working on at various times throughout the semester, and that is managing our own expertise, managing our language, making sure that what we're writing about is accessible and meaningful and useful to our reader. And so chances are you're going to pick a scenario about which you have a fair or tremendous amount of experience. And so let's just say that IT happens to be your area of expertise, and you pick the school tablets scenario. You're going to have a wealth of knowledge and information and wisdom that you can bring to this situation. And it's important for you to leverage that while you're writing this report. What I don't want this to be is a data dump. I don't want you just to go out and find information about the various products or the various pieces of equipment or the various solutions and then just dump that data on a page and expect that your reader is going to be able to decipher that, understand that, and make sense of that. Instead, it's your job as the writer here, as the writer of a report, to provide some context, to provide plenty of explanation, to explain the significance, and ultimately guide the reader through information that they may not be familiar with. So if you're an IT expert, you're going to have to dig in and explain the significance of RAM and processing speed. And you're going to have to explain what dual core means, potentially. You're going to have to explain why screen size might matter, or what a retina display is, or what 1080 progressive imaging is. Those are all things that may or may not come up in your report. And you have to remember, you have to go above and beyond simply providing a definition. You have to provide a meaningful, situation-based definition of those things. Each of you is being asked to write to an audience who has a very specific worldview as articulated in the assignment sheet. So if you're writing about tablet computers, you're not just writing to any Joe Schmo. You're writing to a superintendent of schools who probably has a certain number of things that they feel responsible for, that they are interested in, that's going to really move their needle and guide their decision making. And so you need to hone in on those, and you need to attach those technical specifications and details to that reader's worldview. So if we're writing to a superintendent of schools, it's probably not a stretch of the imagination to think that they're most interested with things like student safety, student productivity and learning, cost effectiveness, and those types of things, because those are things that they're held accountable to. So when we're addressing the various options for tablet computers, we need to make sure that we're talking about the various criteria and specifications in a way that's meaningful to that particular reader. And the same is going to be true of any of the scenarios that are on that sheet. We need to be making sure that we're tying these things back to our reader's worldview. So I've tried to give you details in there that give you some sense of how that particular reader would be approaching this report. And this is very realistic. I mean, this is something that you'll have to deal with at various times. You may have to write a report that's going to go to the financial officer or the controller or the treasurer of a particular group, and they're going to come at this with a very specific worldview, with a very specific lens, and they're going to be looking at things in terms of cost effectiveness and how these various decisions affect the bottom line. And so ultimately, that's what we need to do. And so we need to make sure that we are on board with that, and that we're trying to do that the best that we can. The other thing that this assignment's going to challenge you to do is to present information usefully. So you have a very clear scenario here and a very clear profile of your reader, and ultimately what the reader needs is to be able to compare the information and compare the various criteria related to these products or pieces of equipment. And so it's really important for you to facilitate that. So you have to think carefully. Again, I want you to take on the sort of mindset of an architect or an engineer, and I want you to think about how can I best facilitate a useful type of reading experience for my reader. So what are the best ways for me to put this information on the page? And how can I do it in such a way that it's going to help them see the pros and cons, the advantages, the disadvantages, and the places of separation for these various options. So it's going to force us to do that. And then there's a number of really just subtle and small things that we're going to have to learn along the way, and certainly we're going to learn those over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to teach you about executive summaries. which is essentially just the Cliffs Notes version of a report. I'm going to teach you about how to set up and format a report. We'll talk a little bit about writing individual sections of reports. Next week we'll have a very specific reading about recommendation reports, which may give you a sense of the standard format or layout of this type of report. But ultimately, I think even without doing any of that, you should have a clear enough picture at this point, because we've spent so much of our semester thinking about the importance of our audience and our purpose. We can probably start to make very intelligent decisions about how we're going to approach this assignment right off the bat. And that really goes back to the fundamentals of the course. We got to think about who our reader is, what's their position, what's their authority relative to us, what questions might they have, what concerns might they have, what's the most important thing on their mind, what things do they probably not care about, how are they likely to actually read this, what types of things should we draw attention to. And if we do that, and we think ultimately the purpose of this assignment is to share information, to interpret information, and ultimately to use our own position as an expert, to use our own wisdom to help guide a decision, then that should give us a pretty good sense of a lot of the decisions we're going to have to make as writers. And that's what we need to do as writers, is we need to always just step back, assess the rhetorical situation, ask ourselves those really important questions, and if we do that, it's going to give us a pretty good sense of where we need to head. It gives us a sense of the language we're likely to use. It'll probably give us a sense of the types of information we need to gather. It'll give us some information in terms of what order it would likely make sense to present that information. Again, it'll give us intel into what not to include, etc. So those are all really important things. I can't stress enough that this is a capstone assignment, meaning that it's your chance to really demonstrate all of the skills we've learned this semester. And so I really want to see your document design skills. I want to see your research skills. I want to see your actual sentence level writing skills. I want to see your ability to describe complex or intricate things. So that's really what we're up against. And so we'll be working on that over the next couple of weeks, but I just wanted to sort of plant the seed as to what we'd be up to and what it's going to look like. Again, if you have any questions or concerns about the course, if there's anything at all I can do to help you, please feel comfortable reaching out either through email, through text, a phone call. I can Skype with you, whatever you need. I'm here to help. I realize that the final push through a semester can be super stressful, especially if you're planning to graduate or finish up your program or degree. You're thinking about jobs and those types of things. I get it. The best thing that you can be is proactive. Put these types of things on my radar screen as soon as you can, and I can help you find the resources, or I can be a resource to help you overcome this. And I can promise you, as somebody who's gone through many ends of the semester, you'll never regret working too hard. Your hard work will pay off, particularly in this class, because I can see it, and it really manifests itself in smart and useful final written products. So that's what we're up to in week 13. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I look forward to taking a close look at all of your work over the next couple of weeks. Thanks. Bye.